Okay. So I want to share. Screen share.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Well, we need to, yeah, we also need to click record.
Yep, recording is running on that.
Oh, it is? Okay, perfect.
So everything should be saved to the OneDrive on this account. So this will be pulled off before it gets deleted tonight.
Before it gets deleted.
Okay, which one is it here? Okay, so now let me go here and go here. Which one are you seeing there?
We are
The
seeing.
incorrect one.
Okay. All right, where's my swap? Swap. Where's my cursor here? Where are you?
Oh, is it at the bottom left?
Yeah, I can't find.
Could you hit escape from real quick? And then if you go to slideshow,
Which one?
this slideshow right here in the little ribbon. Yep. Click that, and then it should ask you somewhere which screen you want. At least it did
I just can't see my screen. Well, right now it's mirroring it. But when I go to the presentation, I am not seeing myself over here.
Yeah, it's.
Is this touchscreen?
It is.
No, there's a mouse mark here, but.
Well, wait, there it
Oh wait,
goes.
now you're seeing.
Okay, so where's my?
It's showing, no, it's showing the presenter notes up here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the switch screen. Where's the frickin' switch screen?
Well, the problem is this is showing a different screen. So this is showing your screen.
Okay.
So the recording is showing the right thing. But
Okay, all right.
what the screen display is showing the full note, your notes.
Where is it over Twitter and all that stuff?
So
I gotta see this one up here, but I gotta.
yeah,
see it.
you gotta swap them.
Yeah, no, I got it. No, I got
All
it.
right.
I got it. All right. Where's my mouse? You see my mouse here?
Oh, yep. Swap this way.
Yep. Where's my? Okay, so
So,
okay.
yeah,
All right. Here's my laptop. You see my mouse up there?
Almost.
No, oh, you're.
Yeah. Not there. Okay. No. Wait, you see my mouse?
I saw them left. The top left. Yep, right there. I see it. I see them right here.
There you go. Straight up.
Up,
Left.
and to the left, to the left.
There we go.
All right.
And showing the right thing here. Keep my stuff out of y'all's way. Thank you for being on time to deal with all the nonsense.
All right. And good.
Yeah, everything you need.
Hopefully this will be
I'm ready. You don't have a clicker, so I'm gonna have to keep coming back
Do you
here.
want me to do this for you? Online?
Sure.
Yeah. Just let me know.
You can get started whenever you're
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to be in the recording.
Well, I think it's a recording from the screen.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the event. So our next speaker here is J.C. Vega. He's a retired colonel in the Army, and he was the first colonel in cyber, right?
For the Army.
For the Army. So, yes. Okay, go.
Hello, everybody. Glad you're here. We're not going to talk about cybersecurity per se, the part that has to do with the technical part. We're going to talk about that more important part of the human dimension, the leadership, the organizational structure, because we don't do cybersecurity for security's sake. We do it to enable the operation. I'm going to ask you a favor. If anyone asks a question, can you take notes from me?
Sure.
You too? In case she misses something?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's going to be a test in here. We're going to take a test. The challenge we have with it, I think we all believe it's good, right? Good? Yes? But we're not quite getting it right. Go ahead. So, why do we do diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because it's the right thing to do? Anybody? Because it's the right thing to do? Hands? No. We do it because just in these few little cases we saw up there, you see, and I'm not bashing Merrill Lynch and all the times it's been acquired and changed hands, you kind of see the progression there, but since the 70s, starting with Xerox and then kind of go a little time with Merrill Lynch, they've had to pay out close to $1 billion in today's dollars in fines for in court that somebody sued them in litigation, to mostly lawyers, but then the people who were the victims of their practice, where they were discriminated against. So that's how DEI really got its start. And there's 3 components to DEI. And I bet you have all been a part of it. So show of hands, who has had diversity training? Who hasn't had diversity training? Do you really need it? Do you? No. All right. Part of DEI is we need to recruit more people that are in those underserved communities. But that's not working either. And then you get into the grievance system. If you are wrong, you have a way that you could challenge that. And if it doesn't get fixed within your organization, you can go to the EEOC. Right? System's perfect. Slide. It's an utter failure. A failure. Now, I see there's a diverse crowd in here. Is it working for you? Now, I got to tell you, from the faces that I see here, this is about as diverse as I've seen in any cyber security conference ever. Wouldn't you say, Bryson? Okay, and you're just a fraction. And I'm not talking about in here, I'm talking about when I'm walking out there. We have come a long way. So I'm not here to bash that we're not doing the right thing and we're not doing enough. I'm just saying there's a better way. And I'm going to go over 6 different ways that we can do better. Slide. So, first thing, let's start with a test. Recruitment and performance. This was an actual test for an SAT in the 80s. By show of hands, who thinks A is the correct answer? Who thinks B is the correct answer? Who thinks C is the correct answer? Who thinks D is the correct answer? Okay. Now, what's wrong with this question right here? Someone from the inner city like me, I didn't even know what a freaking regatta was, much less what an oarsman is, but C is the correct answer. Someone who knows what a regatta, this is from the research on this particular question, you can look this question up and you'll find all kinds of research on that, comes normally from someone who probably lived by the water, which you all know about redlining, you all know about the other side of the tracks. It's not by the water, it might be by the sewer, by the water treatment plant, but that's not the water I'm talking about. It comes, those terms there is identified as a person of privilege is most likely to know what that is, not someone who isn't. And I'll tell you, I learned about a regatta and an oarsman and rowing. I'm not even sure. Is the regatta rowing or is that the sailboats? Sailboats? I really didn't know. Genuine. So if you don't know, how can you answer this question? This is an SAT question for you to get into college. Next one. All right. I told you there's going to be a test here. This is an aptitude test where you got to score a certain amount to get accepted into a very technical program. Some would say one of the best careers there is in the armed forces. There are more options than this, but what do you think the right answer was? Okay, A, show hands. B, anybody? B? C, D. Okay. In the early 90s, the Army's flight aptitude test to see if you had the ability to become a pilot, you got extra points if you had answered C. What the hell does that have to do with your ability to be a pilot? This is where an example of where recruitment and performance evaluations fail. Okay? I don't want to talk about everybody else's statistics or your personal life, but that wasn't my background. My parents were immigrants. They were A. It turned out I became an aviator still. Extraordinaire. And what's the watch? So you can always tell an aviator, we'll get to those jokes later. But the idea is here we're talking about systematic testing, that your cultural background, where you came from, is actually going to help you or hinder you. It highlights stereotyping. And I kind of skipped over the previous slide where we talked about removing the bias, the diversity training to remove the bias. There's 3 outcomes for those tests. Okay? 1, you don't need to tell me about it. Like this side over here said, you don't need to tell me about diversity, equity, inclusion. I live it every day. Okay? And there's those in the middle. So, you know, I could learn something. I'm willing to learn something. But then there's that other side that, oh my gosh, here we go again. And that's not the people of privilege. That could be you. That could be me. It's like, oh, cybersecurity training. Oh my gosh, here we go again. I got to do this again. And what it ends up doing is activating a bias, bringing in some of those stereotypes. So instead of making it more welcoming, you're actually creating friction. So the idea behind some of those things that it's not working. Quotas. How many of you who may fit into this category have you felt or somebody told you you're a quota? Okay. Well, in the Army, the fact that I ran faster than you, I did more push-ups than you, I took the harder assignments than you, but it's a quota. On measurable things, that's the excuse. Okay? Whether it's true or not, I'm telling you right now, I am not about quotas. Okay? Because what you find with quotas is, let's just say I recruit a lot of people who fit the demographics that, please come on, sit down, come up front. Don't worry about it, come up front. What you end up happening is they get invited to the party, they get invited to the job, but they're not invited to the meetings. They're not invited to the dance floor. They're not asked to dance. Organization may think they did the right thing by bringing this diversity in, but they're not utilizing it. And one study shows where women were recruited to increase the numbers, they actually had a higher attrition rate of women than the other demographics because they were treated as token. So it's more than just numbers. Good slide. By the way, who got both answers right? Smart person. Okay, so we have the grievance process. What's the problem with the grievance process? Who has reported something on Facebook just to a group? I have. Who gets it? Who gets that note? It's not Facebook.
Yeah.
The admin. What if it's the admin you're reporting? I got kicked out of the group. I got kicked out of the group. So when you utilize a grievance process, the research shows that you're more likely to get retaliated against. That research is from the EEOC, the federal agency, where it shows that in 2021, it's 56. In 2020, it's like 55.8, but a steady increase over the last several years. That if you report something, you're most likely to get retaliated against, and you're most likely have a case that you can take to the EEOC, that the grievance process that was supposed to help you actually escalated, where you had overt and subtle things. Okay, what am I talking about overt? Okay, you get fired, or you get reprimanded, or we're going to do some diversity training for everybody now, all because of you. The subtle things is you don't get offered the training. You are no longer on the distro on the key things that you need to do your job, and you kind of get put aside. And now you have a choice. Are you going to stay there, or are you going to leave? Now you have a hostile working environment. Has anyone in here ever experienced that? Okay. You don't need diversity training like this. Nobody needs diversity training like this. Okay, but what could we do better? So, why is diversity important to cybersecurity? I was part of a research group to look at community colleges to find out what are the attributes that entry-level cybersecurity employers are looking for. They're looking for critical thinkers and people who have an awareness of what's going on. Those are two things that you really can't teach. You have to experience that. You have to experience that in your discipline. That's like leadership. I can teach you leadership all day long, but you have to experience it. So the idea behind cybersecurity and diversity, why it's important to security, is that we demand, we need that diversity of thought. We need people who can see the same problem from a different angle. Why do I have the Yom Kippur War up there? Anybody know? Anybody know what that war was?
Which one?
Yom Kippur, the 1973. Well, what?
I'm Egyptian, so I know that we retrieved our land back from Israel.
Okay. Israel was, you all know the conflict in Israel. It's been going on forever. And they were attacked from the north, the south, and the east by their neighbors. All of them. It was looked at as an utter failure intelligence on the Israeli army, or the Israeli armed forces, Israeli government, the Israeli intelligence communities. Why? Because they believed that this is the tactics, training, and procedure. This is how these enemies of Israel are going to fight. And we know what they're going to do. We know how they're going to say it. We know everything about them. And guess what? They were wrong. And initially, they got their butts kicked. But then they came back, and we've been at kind of a ceasefire, I guess, because it's
After 6 hours, yes.
yeah. So what they figured out at that time is they wanted people who were the devil's advocate. They now have a formal process called the 10th man. The 10th man, if all of us agree on something, if this is what something's going to happen, who's that devil's advocate? Who's that person who say, well, what if they do this to challenge the status quo? If we all went to the same school, we all went to the same training, we all saw the same, we all had the same experiences, we are potentially going to have this idea of groupthink. And we're going to have blind spots because we don't anticipate someone's going to do something like that. When 9/11 happened, shortly after that, I went to a school. And we were part of a strategic analysis discussion that we were having as part of a bigger project that was going on in the war. And they said, look at all these pictures. What do you see? What do you see? Air-conditioned building in the middle of the desert that was in defilade, which means it was like buried and controlled and all that stuff. And everybody, the instructor himself said, I see a chemical weapons plant. That's what I see, a chemical weapons plant. What do you see? Clearly, a chemical weapons plant in the middle of nowhere. Air conditioning is going to have that. What do you see? I see a chemical weapons plant, blah, blah, blah. What do you see? And everyone, and I was working with a different group. I was an Army guy in a Navy school. I was a little bit different. I wasn't IT, I was an aviator. Different experiences altogether.
MTS.
Yep, that's me. So they said to me, what do you see? I said, I see a building with air conditioning that's in the ground. That's what I see. You obviously don't see it. I don't know what I'm supposed to see. That's what I see. And it was like, oh boy, do I stick to my guns? Or do I call it like I see it? They never found the weapons of mass destruction. I'm not saying I was right. I'm just saying I offered an alternative thought. Because I wasn't like everybody else in that room. And that's what's expected from that 10th man. So when someone asks you for your opinion, your input on something, ask them, do you really want me to parrot what you believe to be true? Or do you want to hear my thought? And if they want you to parrot what they believe to be true, don't waste your time. It's not worth it. So why is that important? Because in cybersecurity, it's not like every other kind of defense. You are up against an active opponent, a human being who is countering whatever action you take. I can tell you from certain operations, we anticipate this. Well, if that happens, we're going to counter it with this. And what do we do when we counter something with this? It's with a sniper. We're going to counter it with a counter sniper. And what do you do with that sniper? If there's a counter sniper out there, what do? Counter sniper. And then you have a counter sniper. And you're one-upping it. The idea is that you're with an adversary that is a thinking adversary that is watching what you're doing, and they are reacting. You have to be able to think through this, because it's not going to go as planned. Not at all. I have been through multiple incident responses, training, and never once did the incident response happen the way I was trained. Never once. But all that knowledge, all those different courses of action that you explore were there. Why does it matter to the company? Like I said earlier, you don't do security for security's sake. Why is diversity, DEI, important to a company? Okay, what about our discipline? What did ISC squared say? It used to be that we're 700,000, then went to 1 million. What are we now? 2 million, 3 million, 4 million shortage of talent? Some astronomical number, correct? Do we agree on that we don't have enough cybersecurity talent? And why do we keep going the same well for the limited amount of talent? We have to go to different wells. We have to go to different sources of talent. About 50% of our population is different than me, just by density. We have to recruit that part of the population into our discipline. Race, ethnicity, we have to recruit them, not because it's just the right thing to do, is we need that talent. And guess what? That may give us a competitive advantage because we have the talent. But I'm also reaching markets. Guess what? Women spend money too. People of color spend money too. So from a business case, hey, there's something to be had there. And I talk about the larger talent pool to pull from. So we're not going to do it for security's sake. And to a CFO, it's not because it's a nice thing to do. So now I'm going to go over 6 things that you can do differently for diversity, education, and training. Go ahead. So, like I said, it's part of business. But these are 6 different things you can do. I'm going to go over each and every one of those. I'm going to tie it back to security. Go ahead, slide. Engagement. What does engagement mean? In this instance here, it means being a champion out there, not being afraid to talk about it. Wear that belt. If you're supporting pride, LGBTQ, wear the pin. How many times do we represent things by what we're wearing? Tampa Bay, ISC squared. I don't even know what that is there. Network Tuck. But the idea is you're going to set the tone on what is okay and what is not okay. Now in cybersecurity, you're already setting the tone on what is okay and what is not okay. And all of you are going to be, if you're not already, by virtue of you just being here, by association and what you're getting into, you're going to be the leader of tomorrow. If you don't embrace it, no one else will. And I'm talking about security, I'm talking about culture, organization. I'm talking about this issue right here. And I just told you why. Because it matters to security. It matters to business. There's business opportunities there. And if you're running a business, if you're not making revenue, there's no feel-good programs. If you're not making money, there's no feel-good programs. So you have to make the business case that this is important. Again, you set the tone. Slide. All right. This is a big one for me. There's all kinds of different interactions you have with individuals. Okay, there's mentee, mentor. There's your coach. When I say coach, I don't mean your football coach to your team. Bryson Bort here. He retired out of the Army as a captain, startup, multiple companies, a leader in his own right in cybersecurity. The only guy who can wear a unicorn onesie and make it look good. And make it look good and command the room. Were you there for his keynote this morning? He's a pretty good guy. He's fun. He's good at what he does. I have my own career that parallels him. And on certain things, you know, we're on par. Other things, he's way above me, and other things, I'm way above him. but I look at him as a coach. What do you think about this? Let me run this across you. Not a mentee-mentor relationship. We all know what the mentee-mentor relationship is. We all know the boss and subordinate. But in this case here, what I'm talking about is sponsorship. Put skin in the game. Bring people with you. Now, do I do that? I just gave you an example of that. When I came right here and I said, take notes for me. We're in it together. You're with me. And you're with me too. We are going to get this. The idea is the people that you support are the ones that are going to be successful in your discipline, in your ecosystem. So if you look at, I hope all of you here are mentors to somebody. And I hope all of you here are a mentee of somebody. And I hope you're coached. Look at the pool that's out there. Do you have the diversity in that pool? Or does everybody look like you? Does everybody think like you? If that pool is, ducks go to ducks. Ducks hang out with ducks. Nothing wrong with that. Very natural if you're a duck. But in our space, we have to reach out to these other communities because we don't have enough. Why do we have younger people here? Because we don't have enough people in the discipline. There's jobs that they have to fill. We're opening the gates, but you got to invite the people in. And I say, when you're climbing that ladder, I look at it as I'm a rung on that ladder. I am both pulling somebody up, but I'm also hanging on. Because those of you who are here, and hopefully you're going to stand on the shoulders of that next generation, of that generation before you. That's the only way we're going to raise the bar for all of you. That means creating those opportunities. People say you're going to apply for a job. You're going to sit there and send resumes out to everybody, and you're going to get a job. That's not how it works. Okay? I don't like it, but that's not how it works. If I got all resumes from all of you for a particular job, and they all looked plus or minus 80%, some maybe in the 90s, some maybe in the 70s, and if you tell me, because we have a long relationship, that she's the one, I'll take a chance. You're the one who's going to be creating those opportunities. You're the one who has to take that chance. Well, you say, well, the best qualified person is this person over here, and they look like this, and you pick this other person over here who doesn't fit token, quota. I'll tell you what, in every job I had, regardless of race, color, creed, anything, there were people who were a hell of a lot better than me who could have done that job. And there were people doing my job someplace else that were a hell of a lot worse than me. So I don't buy that. Yes, there could have been someone better, but why didn't you go hire them? Well, you got to take a chance on people. You have to train them. You have to develop. In the military, which I think you guys all figured out, I was in the military before, is we train 2 levels down. I write the evaluations for to those that I supervise immediately and the ones below them. I write their evaluation. And if I'm not mentoring, training them, developing them so they can one day hold my job, I'm hurting the pipeline. So in your job that you're in right now, who are you mentoring 2 levels down? And you have a diverse pool. And I don't mean if you're a woman, you're mentoring a bunch of women. Do you have a diverse pool that you're mentoring? Okay, contact. What does that mean? That doesn't mean us being here in the same room. That's the example I gave you where you get invited to the party, but in this case here, I'm going to invite you on the dance floor to dance. I'm going to invite you to come in to be part of that discussion. That was a better example of asking you to take a stride, take notes from me as we're doing. You're now part of this. You're now engaged. You want to know how to bring someone junior? I always bring junior people so they get exposure of how we think at the next level. Why? Because I always wanted to be in that room. Why do I take some of these classes? I'm not a programmer, but why do I want to know, what's Python compared to Java, compared to this, compared to that? I just want to know the lingo. So because these are conversations that are going to come up. But if I'm not in the room where they're talking about these things, the strategic objectives of the organization, not the day-to-day, but the big picture, how do you invite someone to do a simple one right now? Invite someone in with you to take notes for the meeting so you can focus on the meeting and they can take notes. One of the things we have is an aide in the military for senior officers, an aide-de-camp. Most likely, that aide-de-camp is a very junior person compared to the senior, has a better chance of becoming a general officer than anyone else. Because he was, or she, they're exposed to that higher thinking. So that's how you make the contact meaningful. Not just be there, do things. I put like little leadership games that I'm sure some of you have done. That's some of it there. But the idea is that make that contact meaningful. All right, next slide. Self-organized and self-selected teams. Why is that important here? So, I didn't tell anybody where to sit here. But if I had a sign stating, it'd be fixed. Here's where you're going to sit, and that's your contact. But if I said break up into groups, your groups may form by themselves, self-organized, and you might self-discover what some of that talent is without being forced. Now, you got to be careful with this here because ducks like to hang out with ducks. All right? I met a guy who was from my hometown where I grew up in Orange County, California. Oh my gosh, we hit it off. Next time we're together, I want to sit next to him. But I got to realize I can't just sit next to him. I got to sit next to him. I got to sit next to her. I got to sit next to these other people. Make sure that diversity in there, because when I'm not forcing the DEI and I'm letting it happen naturally, those barriers tend to fall. But you have to let it happen in your organization. And a lot of you come from organizations where you have group projects. You have things that you have to do all the time. So be aware of that, is create those opportunities where it's rewarded that these groups form. Now, the impact on security. This is a big one here. Who in here has ever responded to an incident? Not cyber, any incident, like something major in your life. How many of you solved it by yourself? It must not have been a big incident. Because with the exception of his huge incident, you probably needed help from somebody else. And you have to coordinate and collaborate. Incidents in cybersecurity are not the CIOs, CISOs, CTOs, technical team's problem. It's a whole of business response. And if you're not out there engaging with those other teams and those other aspects of it, how are you going to build that trust? I say in crisis, you move at the speed of trust. You got to develop that in advance. So, next slide. Learning the business operations. Robert Lee, I had him on a program that I run, and I asked him, if somebody wants to get into industrial control systems, OT. What should they do first? He didn't say learn IT. He didn't say learn security. He said learn the operation. Learn what that water plant's supposed to do. How does it run? Understand the business operation of wherever you're working. Wherever your talent is being used, understand why that business exists. Unless it's a cybersecurity company, which they're out there, that business is there to make revenue or do something that is not security. Unless it's a cybersecurity company. You are there to support them. Learn what that is. Go to those corners of your office or that organization so that you understand that. Because again, it goes back to the crisis response. It increases collaboration and coordination when you need them for something, i.e. communications to go out, you need to explain to them. There has to be some level of expectation of what they're going to deliver, what you're telling them. And if you're talking geek and they're talking something else, it's going to create a problem. You want to get to know them and understand each other. But more importantly, you're exposing each other to your different experiences. You're exposing each other to your frame of mind, how you see the world. And I'll tell you, to a fault, we see the world as this technical thing has to keep running and do this, that, and the other. No, there's sometimes you have to shut the system down, but what's the impact of operation? Sometimes you have to run it unsecurely. Unsecure, I don't know, insecure is the word, but you have to run it in a manner that's less than optimal because the mission matters right now. And so you have to understand what that mission is, why it's important, what's your role in it, what's the impact going to be, and explain that risk. If you don't know how to do that, then you're hurting the organization. Slide. This is a big one here. This is a hard one. This is probably the hardest one here. Be transparent. Be transparent in what is it that you're promoting. Okay? Anybody here in sales? Okay. What's the most important job in any organization?
Science.
What's that?
Science.
What did you say?
Science.
Sales. Remember, if there's no sales, there's no revenue, everything else doesn't matter.
Everyone here who didn't raise their hand is wrong. We're all in sales.
True statement. I had a meeting with the then former chairman, CEO, and president of Palo Alto Networks. I was holding a conference with the top CISOs and senior leaders of the industry in the government and private sector and academia. In fact, Bryson and I are going next week to that meeting again. And I told this senior person for Palo Alto Networks, no salespeople. And he says, okay, then can I send someone else instead of me? Because I'm salesperson number one. I said, noted, you're sponsored, got it. We can do that. But the idea is that without that, you're not going to do it. You're not going to succeed because that's the business side of it. That being said, what you reward is a behavior you're going to get. If you reward sales only, then you're going to get people who are going to do whatever they can to sell anything to anybody. Oftentimes, that's not sustainable. One thing I will tell you about this transparency, what I'm talking about here is that if I took this flattered individual, all of you here, let's just say you all work for me, and I gave bonuses to you. And I can say that, you got 2%, you got 3%, you got 20%, you got 15%, and I can say, okay, this is how it all fell out. I can show the performance and how I rewarded it. But now if I dig into it, I may see some patterns there. Patterns that I may not have thought of. So a few weeks ago, I'm having a conversation with a CEO with a multi-$100 million company. And I said, how do you decide, because it's like the end of the year, and he's excited that he gave this person a car for a bonus for this year, and gave this person this, and gave this person that. He was ecstatic about what he rewarded. You watch Undercover Boss, all the money they give and all that stuff. Yeah, I want some of that. But then you look, who did he give it to? And he told me. Mostly men. And he had no qualms about it. Why? Why did he give it to mostly men? Anybody want to throw something out? Say again? Nope. Nope. Because they asked for a raise. They asked for the raise. Well, I want a raise, blah, blah. Okay. To keep you happy, I'm going to give you a raise. Because the women don't ask for raises. The women don't. Now, that's where you got to look at that. It's like, is your performance on par with his performance, with her performance? How are we distributing this? And every manager should have exposure to that. Am I saying publish that openly to everybody? Yeah, that's your call on that. But you better see what you're promoting, what you're rewarding, because that's the behavior you're going to get. Impact on security. I say you don't, if you have a crappy environment, you're going to lose your people. But some people are leaving. One of Bryson's best and brightest, great person, just left his company. And I asked Bryson, what's going on? This guy. He said he got a great opportunity. I applaud him. He's going to do great. You can't compete with that. But if the guy's leaving, actually, I say you can compete with that. Because you can offer them something, you know, I'll give you this in exchange so you have this opportunity. You can compete with that. Maybe not with this particular opportunity, but if you're leaving to get a little bit better over here, and I want to keep you, and you're already a great person, we can negotiate. But if you're leaving because you're in a crappy environment, we can't negotiate. You already left. You already left. So if you want to keep the best and brightest, one, have a culture where you promote that. Two, develop the best and brightest. With that, I believe that was my last slide here. That's a recap of the 6. I hope I informed you. I hope I inspired you. I hope I empowered you, because you could look at your group right now. Who are you mentoring? Who are you sponsoring? Who is in your circle that you're picking up, putting them on your shoulders and launching them on their career? Who in your group are you doing this? And I'll tell you what, everybody has done it for me at one point or another. I did not get here alone. Thank you. If you have any questions or any comments, I welcome them. Maybe stand between you and lunch. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Very tough.
Thank you. Did it all record?
I'll leave it there. This was a backup solution, so we'll see how it goes. Usually
We usually, that instance, they pick the person who's they usually pick somebody with very serious understanding. I want you to give me the comment. Very formal in their process there. I was on a lot of different teams, hoping that we said, what's the best way who's the right person? You're going to say, followed by blah, 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 blah. I'm one leader always. Hey, you see me again? Did you have a question? All right. Find out what would be fun for you to do where it wouldn't be hard for you to explore business. Explore that. If you want to do it, once you kind of find the market, see what else you can talk to people who do that. I perceive this to be fun. I told my battalion commander I don't it's not like fun to me at all. So I said, I don't want to do it. He goes, what? What is about that? I was always a geek playing with computers. I was playing helicopters. I was going to be a battalion commander for aviation unit. They said, you know what? We're trying to recruit technical people to get into IT because they know operations. We can't teach the technical guys operations. I had an interest in that. So find where your interests are, what naturally comes to you. I can do this all day. Get a breath of knowledge. No problem. Yes. 29 total.